Yep, you can start.
Okay, we as today's proposition strongly believe that prominent people like business leaders and celebrities should emphasize the positive aspects of their country rather than negative when speaking on international platform. By prominent, this debate is not about old people. We are talking only about really prominent people, by which we mean like famous people who are famous inside their country and outside their country, people who have the power to influence opinions. In this debate is about what is the best way, not like what is the best way, but what would be better, what would suit best to the economy of this particular developing country, if these people would speak badly or about their country, or if these people would speak good about their country. So this is the debate about the economy. We believe, and our first argument is that like if people speak, prominent people speak badly about their country on international platform, that creates a very bad image about this country. That means that less people are willing actually to come inside this country as tourists, as visitors. And that means that this country wouldn't get some revenues from tourism. And why it's important? It's important because we are talking about not a rich country, but about developing country that really needs money to solve problems inside, like healthcare, infrastructure, all these like very important areas and projects that help this country to survive and be attractive economically. Also, the more these people are talking badly about their countries, the more international community and especially very powerful states are willing to put a pressure on this country. And by pressure, I mean economic pressure, and that might be sanctions. The example is Belarus. Belarus was under US sanctions and under European Union sanctions for about 10 or 15 years. Because Belarusian opposition strongly demanded US and European Union just to do something to get rid of so-called president dictator. But as we see as a result, like they didn't achieve anything. What they achieved was that the business suffered a lot. Our businessmen in Belarus didn't have opportunity to sell their goods to US or European Union. Belarusian people were limited in traveling abroad because the rules for them were very strict because of sanctions. And there are many other things that Belarusian people were restricted to do only because the country was under sanctions. And we know many other examples where economic pressure wouldn't achieve anything. We know the case of Iran, we know the case of North Korea. So we believe that like these celebrities, when they are just saying badly about like their politicians, about their country, they create the situation when foreign countries are more willing to use economic tools just to put the country down. And even if we are not talking about sanctions, because sanctions is like kind of like extreme, but these people create a very bad image of the country, and that means that other states are less willing to cooperate economically with this country. For example, they are not willing to sign trade agreements with this country, to provide this country with loans or investment. And also, I want to right now to focus particularly on business people who are speaking badly about their country abroad and celebrities. If we are talking about business people, they talk about, mainly they talk like about the area of their competence, and they talk badly about the bad business environment inside country. That means that less owners of less business people from other states are willing to come inside the country. So people-to-people contacts are less likely to happen. And that means that less foreign companies would invest inside this particular developing country. And again, I want to emphasize this, that it's very important for developing country actually to get some funds and some financial support, both from governments and from just businessmen, from companies, from different economic institutions from other states, because this country is a developing one. It doesn't have people there don't have their own resources. They need to borrow money somewhere, and usually the government of developing country doesn't have resources to provide these people with funds, so they have to borrow outside. And if we are talking about celebrities, when they speak badly about their country, that means like the other celebrities are also, like foreign celebrities are less willing to come inside this country to provide, to make shows there, to organize some contests, like song contests, dance contests. And that means that again, like the less money would just come inside this country, and the people who live in this country, they would be restricted in their access to cultural events, like international cultural events, and that means that like they would suffer from lack of like cultural development inside the country. So we believe that this motion that we told you, like today's motion should stand because for economic reasons, because if people speak badly outside their country, that harms the budget of this developing country, that harms the income of particular people, not just particular, but like basically every person inside this country, whether he's a businessman or just an ordinary person. And we believe the motion should stand. Thank you.
Thank you for your speech. And for the next speech, I'd like to call upon the leader of opposition. You have 7 minutes as well.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so we're going to focus on, I think, 4 main things in this debate. First of all, the international relation aspect, which the government has already picked on. Then international opinion, which I think government has also picked on, but I think may have misrepresented. And then also the national side of things, which government hasn't picked on. It's not simply about international platforms are actually viewed inside the countries when people are talking about them. So I think that's also important as well. And also finally, from the own celebrities' perspective, because government hasn't picked on that, and I don't think we should simply be focusing on the country. We should also be focusing on the effect it has on the celebrities themselves when they speak on international platforms. So first, I think the meat of the matter with this argument is generally going to come down to international relations. So let's focus on that, shall we? So governments did mention that developing countries rely upon tourism and trade agreements, which is absolutely correct. I agree with them 100%. However, I would question whether by telling the truth, because remember, I think it's important to highlight that when you emphasize something out of disproportionately to its actual effects, and you don't mention the negative side effects, and that is in effect telling a lie. It's distorting the truth. Though what you may saying, what a celebrity may be saying may be true, it's a distortion. And therefore, we would argue that that creates distrust. The biggest problem with developing countries is the lack of trust people have in them. The lack of trust to go visit these countries with tourism, as government mentioned, the lack of trust to invest in these countries, the lack of trust to provide foreign aid, and to just generally improve the economic situation. People don't trust these countries. Why? We would argue because there is a lack of truthful information. So with regards to foreign investment and trade agreements, government said that by mentioning negative side effects of, or negative parts of the country's image, then somehow investment would decrease. Now, we would argue the opposite is true. So at the moment, the main restriction to foreign investment is a lack of information. Investors don't feel confident enough that they understand the situation. Investors can invest in any country. They've invested in almost almost every country across the globe, but they tend to invest more in their own countries, not because their countries are perfect, but rather because they know more about their countries. So therefore, if they're given more information about, more truthful information, the pros and the cons, then they will feel more secure in investing in that country. And why is that? Because if you don't have all the information, then it's likely your business is going to fail. And if celebrities only highlight the positive impacts, there is a chance, as government mentioned, that people may feel safe. They'll have a false sense of security of investing in these countries. And then that's when the problem comes in, because then those investments, those businesses fail, and people are even more scared of investing. So in the long term, this is a very bad strategy for foreign investment. I think investors should be given a clear, open picture of what the country is like. Secondly, about sanctions. Now, I think the notion that celebrities could somehow alter whether a country is sanctioned or not is absolutely ridiculous. However, I do think that it's important that they play an important role in foreign policy where aid comes in. So with aid, with foreign aid, it's very important what the public opinion is. So in the UK, for example, if the government wants to give foreign aid to Africa, they have to have support from their citizens. And if their citizens don't see that African people are struggling, then it's very, very unlikely that the government will be able to give reasons to their people why it would be important to provide foreign aid. So foreign aid to work, which is very important for developing countries. That's what they need. They need sources of capital from other countries. There needs to be public support in developed countries. And that will only come by showing that these countries are needy. And that is done by providing a full picture and showing that, yes, there are some things that aren't going quite well, and that's why we do need your help. Now, coming from an international news perspective, so not from international relations, but news. So why is it important that celebrities talk about the negative side effects of the things that are going on in their country? Because they get the first say. So with news, it's generally you have the first person who publishes the news story, just like in a debate, they get to frame the narrative. So if foreign news, if celebrities don't talk about the negative side, negative things that are going on in the country, then it's likely that foreign news agents will. Now, these foreign news agents, A, don't have any motivation to present the country in a good light or help the country in any way. And B, actually their main motivation is to get an eye-catching headline. So they'll actually probably focus on the most negative parts of the country. So if celebrities actually talk about these negative effects, they have the opportunity to get the first say and to frame the argument in a way that's more positive for their country. Finally, and I think if people, it's simply boring. Why are celebrities given power or given the opportunity to go onto TV talk shows and things like that? Because they have something interesting to say. Now, if they are predisposed to only talk about the positive things, it's very likely that these sort of celebrities from those countries will not be invited, and therefore they'll lose their power altogether as public spokespeople. They just won't get invited because guess what? These are private companies that invite them onto these private talk shows, and what these companies are after is catching and arresting headlines. So there does need to be that element of truth, that element perhaps of interest, because people aren't interested in positive narratives, to be honest. The majority of news is negative. So and it's very important that developing countries are noticed on a global scale, because at the moment they're not. That's a big problem. So if these countries want to be seen and want to be heard, then they have to be willing to tell the truth. Finally, I want to talk about the national perspective. So the fact that the people in the country where the celebrity is from will be watching this. And why is it important that these celebrities provide a full picture? Well, A, because in developing countries, most of them are actually not democratic, or even if they are democratic, freedom of speech is restricted, so it's semi-democratic. So these are one of the few privileged people who have the opportunity to say the truth. Why? Because A, actually a lot of them don't live in the country, so they're not at such a great risk, or B, they have security guards, So they're one of the few people who can actually, who have some degree of freedom of speech, and see they're given platforms from which to speak, because in their own countries, they could only do that through protests and things like that. So they're given a privileged position and they should use it. So yes, thank you very much. I think my time is up.
Thank you for your speech. Just please give me a second. Okay. And for the next speech, I'd like to call upon the Deputy Prime Minister. You have 7 minutes as well.
Thank you. So we do agree on both sides that we are arguing in the interest of those developing countries and arguing of what is going to work better for them, to emphasize the good sides or the bad sides. So our opponents are stating that it would be better for people to know about the negative sides, but we also believe that this is like, we do agree that this is something that does catch people's interest most, that people do get more stuck on some negative emotions or negative news and etc. Therefore, we believe that those things are already widespread and that there is a lack of positive information that would attract more interest to the country, that would create a more positive interest, more investments, and etc. So basically, like as an example, we can take North Korea. So probably no one really knows if there are like any good scientists there, or there are some good developments or projects. We know that it is a dictatorship. We know about the nuclear weapons and stuff, and that's it. And so therefore, no one wants to cooperate with it, and etc. So maybe have we known some good aspects of some good scientists there that are developing some good medical things or something like that, they would be more willing to cooperate with it rather than just to, you know, not interact with it at all. And therefore, we believe that we are not claiming that we do not provide any negative information at all, but by emphasizing the positive things, we do provide more information about them, because the negative things everyone already knows about them because they're more catchy. But all the rest does remain in the shadow of those things, and therefore does not get enough attention. So when we talk about the international relations, for example, like the investors, they do need to get enough positive information. They're not going to invest things. We're not talking just about the charity. We talk about some long-term relations, long-term projects, and etc. And for that, the investors, they need to be their attention has to be catched. They need to be attracted. And so if they mostly hear like that there are so many problems in the country, they're not going to be interested. And even though just that this is a dictatorship, for example, or if there is like a death penalty there or something like that, yeah, they will understand that, they will feel pity, but they're not going to want to invest their money there. But if these people do emphasize that, for example, there are many medical startups, that there are some, you know, aspiring scientists, that they do have some great technical universities there and something like that. If they do provide this information, this may be something that no one has heard of before, because as our opponents have mentioned, people need to hear about the negative things. And so therefore, we believe that the prominent people, the people who have more who will have more people listen to them, are actually the ones who will be able to provide this information. And so thus the investors or some business partners are going to be more interested in these countries, because they will finally hear something positive about it, because they and etc. So now going on further, when we talk about the situation within the country, we also believe that nowadays we can take, for example, like Russia and the USA, and the people within these countries, you know, being really negative towards each other because of the propaganda that they show in the news, by mostly picturing the bad aspect that these countries have. This may be objective, but these people need to hear more of the good things about it, because, for example, the people from Russia and the US, they will meet in some airport or somewhere, and they will be negative towards each other, although they're both good like persons, because of this sort of propaganda. And so therefore, we believe that these people should know more good things about the historical heritage of these countries, more good things about the like some literature or developments that they have had recently, because thus they're probably they're probably going to actually when they have more of this positive information that has been emphasized, they're going to choose some politicians, they're going to vote for some politicians who are more internationally friendly, someone who will be more willing to have good cooperations with those countries, rather than just someone who also hates Russia or also hates the USA and something like that. So we believe that by providing more emphasizing the more positive information, we are actually having this chance to change people's perceptions towards a better way. So they're themselves going to be more positive towards these countries, and as a consequence, they're going to be more willing to cooperate. They're going to choose more cooperative politicians, and as a consequence, the relations with these countries are also going to improve. Now, our opponents, right? So we believe that by emphasizing this sort of information, we're going to get more attention. Also, our opponents have mentioned that the negative, that we should show the negative information just basically because the positive things are boring. This might be so, but if we talk about the celebrities, the leaders, they're actually the people who are going to be able to provide this information in a positive way. That's first of all. Second of all, we do not believe that this has to be necessarily boring. I mean, is it really boring when you see how people create some new AR technologies of how they can, use the artificial reality in the medicine, for example, or in some other spheres, when you can see holograms and things like that, people are attracted. So if you just tell them about this, just show them that there is this wonderful positive reality that they can figure out about, they're still going to be interested. So therefore, we believe that, for example, when the celebrities are talking about how many there are good things about this certain politician who is more cooperative towards some other countries, even people within these countries are going to vote for that politician, and this would improve the situation overall. Now, further, we've also mentioned that if you do create some, mostly you talk about negative things within the country, you're going to create a negative image of this country. And so that the other countries are not going to be really willing to cooperate with it, maybe just introduce some sanctions or shut down from it because they do not want to get into this. But if you create the positive image, they're going to be more motivated to invest in this country, to maybe figure out some ways that this country could be helped. And we believe that this is important for the economy of this country and etc. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your speech, and just give me 1 second. And to conclude the debate on opening tables, I'd like to call upon the Adjudicator of opposition. You have 7 minutes as well.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. 1 second. So let's see. Now, everything was built around a very important point. If we should emphasize the positive side or should we emphasize the negative side? Rather, what we are saying in opposition is that we need a full, truthful picture without emphasize any of the sides. When opening government said something about we need to emphasize the positive side so people can invest more and stuff like that, it kind of reminded me of medicine advertisement when they tell you the one good thing the medicine is for and then list a billion side effects, but then really fast without really emphasizing any of them, which are probably way more harmful from the good thing that the medicine is going to do for you. So what we are saying is that when we have celebrities, or what we usually call as the soft power, that would help the people feel hope that there is one day where someone could hear them, where they will feel heard, and people would know that they're actually suffering, that they're going through a lot, so that more aid would be sent to them, which I think with celebrities, they are heard, they have platforms, therefore they have a huge power. With power comes responsibility. And with responsibility, they really have to show a really full picture of what's actually going in with their countries, because that's the only source of hope those people have. As my teammate already mentions, that it's for them, the freedom of speech is quite limited, and that's their only hope of ever being heard. Another thing that was mentioned is foreign aid, how important foreign aid is. And some people said that, oh, if they know that those countries have those kind of regimes, they're not going to help them. I think you're wrong. I think it's the total opposite. When they're going through a problem, how are people going to know that they're having problems if we don't hear the full picture? If you're going to only emphasize about the positives, people are not going to know that those people need aid in these certain aspects. So I think that showing the full picture is actually quite important to know what kind of aid to give and how to help those people, because there's a full picture, especially when the politicians are not doing their job of showing what the people are actually going through. I think that this is the whole point of having a celebrity. Another thing is the self-image of this celebrity. Do you think people would once again trust the celebrity when he gets on this international platform, gets the chance to actually be heard and not say anything of the, like, not say the full truth? Do you think people would trust him again? He would rather be called government celebrity. People would not like him anymore. He will not be a national celebrity anymore. He will very simply distort his own image. Um, Another thing was, I don't remember who mentioned it, but then opening government said something about that the celebrities should emphasize about the history of the country, the positives of the country, which I agree with you. Every country has its own amazing history, but books were made for a reason. If you want to know about the history of a country, just go and get a book. What we need right now is to see the full picture about those developing countries and not just listen to a nice story of how cool this country was one day. We need to make it cool once again by showing the full country. Sorry, the full truth. I think there is a POI. I'll take it from the closing government.
Hi. So we
Yeah.
think what people in these countries need is economical development. This will
Yes.
come with aid if these countries believe that there is hope for this country to get better, which is why we want to emphasize the good things.
Of course, that is true, that aid is going to come if we are going to emphasize that they're only positives. Once again, what you're saying is that we're going to emphasize one side while ignoring the negative sides. What I'm thinking is that we should show a full picture. When we say that they're positive and they're negatives, it will show a truthful reflection of the country, rather than just saying, oh, we're just so amazing, we have those really good stuff, and that's it. When we say we have both positives and negatives, in fact, this truthful part is the biggest sign of improvement. It's the biggest sign of building trust between nations, that there is actually a full picture. You understand me? So I think that showing a full picture is not going to decrease from the positives. It's rather going to increase trust between the investors or the international community and the national community. One another thing is, I don't remember, once again, someone mentioned the fact that when we say negative stuff, people will stop investing in the country and it will hurt the economy of the country. If you think about it, if we say the full picture, positive and negatives, people who will get anything good from investing in this country are still going to invest in this country, but they will have a better way of investing because they see the full picture and they know how to invest the right way and actually to get profit, rather than just going in thinking that, oh my God, this is a perfect place, and then ending up with done stuff that they have never heard of and having their business fail. And then 100% no one else is going to invest because they're going to say their stories and tell their horrible stories and experiences to another places. So we really have to keep this in mind. And another thing, when less people invest, it kind of helps stop this government. If you think about it, it decreases the power from those dictatorships. If we think that, oh, they're doing great, oh, it's a democracy, it's a perfect place, and we keep helping this government, it's not a good idea, that's for sure. But when there's a more realistic picture, when we know if this person is actually a dictatorship, he's hurting his people, or it's like somewhere balanced, I think this is going to help be more helpful. So what I really need to highlight is that we are with showing a full picture without emphasizing any of the sides. I'm not saying, let's say, oh, this place is horrible, just run away, investors, never come here again. That's not what we're saying. We're rather saying that there should be a full picture. An investor should know what's going on. People who want to give aid need to know how to give aid, how to actually give aid that's going to be helpful for this nation, how to actually help them. Because without a full picture, you'll never be able to know how to help or how to invest, etc. So yeah, I think there was a question from someone.
CG?
CG, okay, yes, please.
Yes, look, we think it's not about how honest you are, because people don't just invest without asking anything. Sure, they'll meet up afterwards and they will talk and explain everything. The question is, what is the first image these people, these investors get?
Excuse me, I don't think that any investor would ever invest just from a talk show or from a TED speech. That's not how it works. You're just showing a full picture of how, like, they go through a lot of research, and just by knowing, having it in the back of their minds that there's those negatives, it's not going to stop them from investing. Investing is not something that they decide on just by, like, I don't know, a TED speech or something like that. So it's way bigger. I think that the job of the soft power is just to do its best of showing a full picture, to give hope to the people inside. And yeah, I think that's my time. So thank you very much.
Thank you for your speech. Just give me a second. And for the next speech, I'd like to call upon a member of government. You have 7 minutes as well.
Everyone can hear me?
Yes.
All right, perfect. Let me just set my timer. Very well. We think there is an agreement in the House that we basically want to do what best supports the economy of that country and best supports the citizens of the developing country. And the main question is, how do we actually achieve it? Now, we think an important case of framing here needs to be that this is a debate about what do you want to emphasize, whether the negative aspects or the positive aspects. We think we need to ask ourselves, can we truthfully show any image which is not necessarily putting the emphasis on the negative? What we say on our side of the government is, regardless of truthfulness, we need to put the emphasis on the positive, because if we don't do it, it will harm those citizens. I will show in my case there will be integrated rebuttal about why putting the emphasis on the negative, which is being truthful, to be honest, is really problematic to those countries and severely going to harm them. So basically, I'm going to talk about 2 points. The first one is going to discuss about how actually it's going to affect the world and how there will be less aid and less help to those countries if we truthfully put an emphasis on the negative. And basically, my second point will show that there is another issue here, that we think that this kind of aid and this kind of international help and business cooperation can actually improve the democratic side of this country, in the end creating an actual truthful image that the country is better. So let me just give a little bit of externus rebuttal. So first of all, we need to understand that before citizens want to have a future, hope for the future, that maybe the country will be better and have trust in their celebrities, they want food on the table, they want good lives. So we think we get this on our side. I'll show in my point. And all right. So moving on to my point. Why in our world there will be more aid and more money in the developing countries? First of all, as I said, you need to either put an emphasis on the negative or the positive. You cannot be in the middle. Somewhere is going to be the emphasis. Now, there's no way to truthfully frame bribes, corruption, bad bureaucracy, and bad infrastructure as something which is good for business. There is no way to truthfully say, oh, but actually it's really, really nice to not be able to get things delivered on time. It's really, really nice to have to bribe officials in order to run your business as regular. It's really, really nice to have child labor in some places. You cannot truthfully say that this is something that will make a business person want to go to those places. You cannot truthfully talk about bad human rights in that country and convince celebrities to come to those countries and perform, for example, because they will not want to get associated with it. So if you cannot truthfully focus on the positive, then the truthful side will be in the negative. But this is going to be very problematic. Why? And I'll show it in our case. So basically, we understand that we need a good image to those countries in order for that to be in order for us in order to support our country. If we try to be truthful, it's a lost cause. And if we try to fight for the first impression, it's also a lost cause if we try to be truthful at the same time. Now, before I continue, yes, POI. POI.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you, but isn't that the truth anyways? Like when the investors or celebrities or whoever visits this country, that's what they're going to face. And then it would be a way bigger problem because they're going to go out and they'll
Right.
say
Thank you very
everything.
much. Thank you very much. So yeah, we agree that when you get there, you will see all of those bad things. And we think now the question is, do you do anything to fight that bad image? Because basically every person making a decision is kind of weighing the bad against the good. And the more good there is, then the more reason for you to actually go on and invest in those countries. And if there is nothing good to support that idea, there is no reason absolutely whatsoever to go into those countries, then there is no chance in hell that you, either as a businessman or as a celebrity, going to go there. Now, what do businessmen and celebrities care about? They care most about the ability first to establish a business, to actually be able to run it, and second, about image. And for that, you need to feel that there is something to work with. You need to feel that the business can make a profit. You need to feel that there are no very big chances that you will be boycotted if you run in those countries, and that you can actually show that there is, and if you're a celebrity, you might care that that you want to go to somewhere that improves your image. You can show that there is improvement in the place. You can show that there is something to work with. You could show that it's ethical to actually support and perform in that country, etc., etc. Now, we think both of these people, if they actually go to these countries, they basically draw in more action. If one celebrity goes and perform in a country, then it incentivizes other celebrities to jump on the bandwagon of, good image and good publicity and, perform in these countries. But the thing is, but if a country is keeping it being shown as only bad, then it really, there is no reason to go there. Let's look at the BDS movement, for example, that has succeeded in driving off loads of artists away from Israel because they don't want to be even associated with such a bad place. So we can see that you need hope in order to go there. Now, as already OO said, the news have no reason to show positive picture. They want the good, juicy story about the bad West developing country. And the sanctions happen regardless. I mean, countries will, and the UN don't care about, what you say about your country. If you have something bad, that there will be sanctions. So basically no one in the world today is painting a good, positive image of those countries. And if no one is painting, then we need at least something to tilt the tide in their favor, to tilt the tide, for celebrities to come and actually improve business. Now, let us move to basically already here we proved to you how exactly we're going to get more aid, why it's so crucial to have these people put a positive emphasis. Let us talk about how this in turn will actually help also in the long run. Our second point basically discusses about the connection between money and awareness to improvement of democracy in those countries and improvement of procedures. So the idea is today that these countries can run with all of these bribes and run with all this bad bureaucracy and bad infrastructure because it doesn't cost them too much. The less people are reliant on you working according to the rules, then you can break the rules. But if there are more Western businesses in those countries, then that means that they will try and drive Western not regulation, but like levels of being efficient and being good. And they will basically ask for more and more for the businesses there to improve. They will put a facility there and they will ask for there to be no child labor. And because, Westerners are going to fight with the law that these facilities will be legal, so there would also be social rights for these people working in those facilities. And the idea is that the more businesses, the Western businesses are in that country, then that means that more people are affected by it. And if more people are affected, we're in the final minute, I'm sorry. And the more people are affected by it, then that means that basically more of them get better and better and better. Second, if we have more celebrities there, then there is more awareness. And we're saying that even if that some of this awareness is going to be negative, at least people care about the country and care about the policies that are being done there and care about the things that happen there. And maybe they will pressure their governments to maybe make a difference there, make something change, make something better there. So we think all in all, this idea is going to actually better those countries rather than harm them. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your speech. And for the next speech, I'd like to call upon a member of opposition. You have 7 minutes as well.
Hello. Is my voice clear?
Yes.
Okay. I'll go on. Just 1 minute. Yeah. As my partners in the opposition team mentioned, that the international relationships are the international opinion is important, and the celebrities aspect is important. We also should mention that tends to invest more in countries that they know more about. If they don't know all about the country, they will not invest in it. They need to see the full clear picture of the country. It's also important that with all the aid or the foreign aid that they get, it should be invested in the developing countries, and that will be done by showing that the country is in need and it's need help. And also we should mention that celebrities are the soft power for the people who need to be heard, and to show them that they have huge power, they have responsibility. They are the only source and hope for them to be listened. And whenever people listen to the full picture, they want to invest more in the country, like, because as my team previously mentioned, that politicians don't do their job, and we don't need to listen to the country's beautiful side without ignoring the other side. And there's something I should mention, a very important thing, which was that part of the closing government team was talking about that helping them, the truth help them on the long run for democracy and money. Truth will bring more money by showing the full picture. And if we're talking about democracy, let's apply in reality by giving those celebrities or those famous people and the business leaders the right to talk and express what they want to. And for my point is, I'm going to talk on the humanitarian side. Despite the fact that they are celebrities, they are famous, they also care about their people. They also care about people who can't afford their life, who can who are suffering from the shortage of their livelihood. So they are by saying that the negative things, they're willing to promote and protect the livelihood of those people. The second is promoting collective solutions, including strengthening governance and creating markets for sustainable development, strengthening the global cooperation, and increasing financial assistance, as well as promoting transfer of technology. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your speech. And to conclude the debate on the government bench, I'd like to call upon the government witness 7 minutes as well.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, cool. 1 second, I'll start my timer. Oh, okay. Look, when I have a fight with my friend, I tell her what's wrong. I don't go around telling every other person that I had a fight with her and that she's terrible. We think this is quite similar to this. We think that these celebrities or businessmen can speak inside their countries about the bad things in their countries and can give a voice to the weak people in these countries, as the opposition is so much want. They can speak in their own languages about the problems to their own people and help and fix them. This is not the issue here. The issue is how I speak about my countries on the international level, how I speak about my countries to people who are not in my countries, and what light do I present my countries to these people. I think there's one main question in this debate, and this is how on what side of the motion do we have the most investment, being it like economical aid, being it in investment or in foreign aid, and so or in collaborations and so on to these countries. Our first half does a great job in explaining why these countries so much need the money, be it for like their development or for political purposes. But OO completely agrees with that. So the line question still in our first half, which we help close, is what gets this money into these countries. This is the reason why we are above our first half and why we actually win also the oppositions, because we're the team that shows you that only in this way will these countries get foreign aid and investments. I will start with some external rebuttal and then move on to arms. So for this point that is so important to opposition, they're telling us about the truth. Look, the thing is, this is not about speaking or not speaking the truth. There is no truth. We're talking about like celebrities who are just sharing their own experience, sharing their own life, about how they live their life. This is not about them telling or not telling the truth. We think they can still, like what you're asking, tell everything. The question is not what they tell and what not. The question is what they emphasize. And we think of them emphasizing the good things in these countries, is them emphasizing the development, is them emphasizing the change, the good change, is them emphasizing hope. These are the things that we stand for. These are the things that will give a much better situation for these countries. Now they tell us, but look, there's a lot of distrust. Distrust is usually against politicians who lie to you on an everyday basis, who lie to you on the national levels, who lie to you on the international levels. These people are not politicians. We think this is the key issue in this debate. They're not politicians. They don't have the responsibilities to give you statistics. They don't have the responsibilities to tell you exact things. What they can do is share with you their own experience, and we think you will never distrust someone for sharing how they feel about things, for how they experience things in their own countries. And we think this is why it is so important in this debate that we're not talking about politicians, but rather we're talking about celebrities and businessmen and so on. So we don't think that they will not be trusted. And as for disappointing their people, I've already said they can, well, first, they can just like talk about these issues inside their countries. And secondly, I think that people in developing countries care much more about having food on the table, about having a working job and so on, and not just being heard. Because being heard, if it doesn't get them food, it doesn't get them anything. So we think these are the more important issues on this debate. All right, now, so about how investments, like how investors work. Look, again, this is not about lying about your country. This is about pitching your country to investments. When I'm pitching a technology or I'm pitching an idea, I don't go along saying, so the problems with the idea are these, and the good things with the idea are these. I just tell them about, I emphasize what like the best things about the ideas, and then we're talking about investments in a more serious way. Do we put on the bigger picture? Because these investors hear about like many countries, tens of countries along the way. This is not about having the full picture. This is about having the motivation to go and invest. And the question is, after they hear me talk, like 1 in 100 people talk, each businessman about countries, will they remember my country and be interested in it, and or won't they remember it? We think this is giving them a good pitch. Later on, when you're on the tables and talking about deals, then obviously, yes, you will give them the full picture and so on. This is more about giving them the motivation. We think this is also true with aid. They can't and we agree with them. They say that aid is one of the country's main incomes. Yes, we agree, but we think there are a lot of poor countries. There are a lot of bad countries. That's not only the only reason why countries give aid. Countries give aid for other countries who are showing hope, who are showing change, who are showing potential. We think these are critical things for countries to give aid. How my partner explains to you about business collaborations or cultural collaborations is crucial for people to be aware of these countries. We think that you can't explain your countries. You can explain to your people why this is like a good investment if they don't even, or a good aid if they don't even hear about that country. So we think that awareness of these countries is very crucial and will only come when these people speak about them good. We think this is also true for what they tell us about in the news or whatever. Sure, maybe like talking about all good and good things is fantastic, but also so I'll take before my time's up.
Yeah, so you mentioned the fact that people could talk on a national platform, but isn't the whole problem with developing countries the fact that they don't have freedom of speech? That's why it's important that they use the international platforms to tell the truth.
Look, if they don't have freedom of speech, then they don't have freedom of speech outside their country, and once they go back, like they'll face the same consequences. We don't think that this is the big. We think that they have some leeway. Like if you have the power to tell us they can say whatever they want outside, then we think it's quite symmetric. If they live outside the country, we think there are a few of these, and they anyways can talk a lot about their country if they don't go visit it. So we think the question is, this is not a question. Now, look, even if we're talking about news, sure, like saying everything is great is boring, but we're not talking about Finland. We're talking about countries who came out of the gutter and ran themselves. We think this sells. We think hope sells. We think change sells, and we think giving people motivation to help you also sells. If I'm telling you like I'm terrible at everything, then you won't, and I need your help in debating, you won't be so willing to help me. If I tell you, look, in my first year in debating, I raised my speaks total 5 points, then you'll have much more motivation to help me, even if I'm still not that good, even if I'm still not that perfect. We think for all these reasons, these countries will give so much more help economically and eventually politically if these people are show their countries in a good light. For all these reasons, CG.
Thank you for your speech. And to conclude the whole debate, I'd like to call upon the opposition whip. You have 7 minutes as well.
Yes, can you hear me?
Sorry?
Okay. Here I can point out the flaw that might come with by emphasizing the good aspects. They said that the investors and those who want to fund these countries will not be interested in their negative aspect. Well, they are developing countries, and it is known that they have their own issues. And when you give them the whole picture about the real situation, you will get their trust, and this realistic picture would help these countries in getting fund and aids. Here also, I can summarize the opposition side in 3 points. First, it is important to emphasize the truth about these countries and their, for example, their economic situation, because that would solve their issues, and that would solve their financial and economic issues. Also, the second point is that the investors would be aware of the real situation of the whole picture in this country. If they talked about the good aspects only, they would have the wrong picture, and there would be high hopes to be destroyed. Also, the third and the final point is about talking about the negative aspects would help these countries by creating markets for sustainable development, strengthen global cooperation, increasing financial assistance, also promoting transfer of technology. To conclude, business leaders and celebrities from developing countries have the most powerful tools in media and in the market. So their voice will be heard by thousands of people. It would be great to talk about their country's issues, so that it would help these countries, their countries, to it would be easy to find solutions for these issues. Thank you.
Thank you for your speech, and thank you all for the debate. I'll be back in around 15 to 20 minutes.